I think I went through your website. I wanted to dive into some of the talking points that you had there,
Sure.
specifically being Wyoming Energy. So typically, and especially for you representing House District 61, I think you think Wyoming Energy, you think oil and gas. But I'd like
Mhm.
to take the opening part of this podcast and talk about Wyoming coal, specifically the super resource that used to be Wyoming coal is kind of not so much the super resource anymore, and I think that there's some red flags approaching, one of which being the rise in unemployment rates amongst coal miners in towns like Gillette. Do you think that our state should be taking any preemptive measures to combat poverty in these communities?
I think that, well, firstly, I think that we need to unleash Wyoming energy. Okay. So, any source of electricity that we can be using as a state, we need to be exploring that. And that includes coal, that includes oil, that includes natural gas, that includes modern nuclear technology, that
The
includes
nuclear thing is
geothermal.
so exciting, man.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of spooky stuff with what's going on in Kemmerer and I mean associated with Bill Gates. But honestly, when I think of nuclear energy, I think that that is the single resource that it releases the least amount of carbon.
Mm.
Um, and it has been used. It's been utilized by the American military for decades. So we have nuclear generated submarines and aircraft carriers that are able to operate for years on end without having to refuel. Um, I don't see there's any reason not to power our communities with that type of a resource. And if we can be exploring these energy resources, uh, we can continue to be the powerhouse, the mitochondria, if you will, of the United States.
Sure. So you think that Wyoming could be the leader in nuclear power?
I think if there's any state that ought to be the leader in nuclear power, it should be one that's sparsely populated with wide open ranges and already has established links throughout the entire country.
Yeah, I love this, and specifically the plant in Kemmer. That's residing in an old coal manufacturing plant. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So if we did see a downturn in coal in communities like Gillette or that that's southeastern, right? If we saw those communities start to lose their coal production, we could possibly throw some nuclear energy out their way and maybe produce jobs.
Well, first and foremost, I'm sorry, we need to be friendly to Wyoming coal.
Mm.
Wyoming has some of the best coal in the world for generating electricity. And if it weren't for the federal government and it weren't for our the state of Oregon specifically
Sure.
stopping us from exporting our coal, we would be sending our coal out to all of the developing countries that need it the most right now. We benefit from having already experienced an industrial revolution. But right now, countries like India, like Thailand, like Cambodia, um, they're just starting to get those industries up and running, um, and they want a sustainable source of fuel where we have we have that fuel. We have the coal to burn it. You don't have to go to a river to burn coal. You don't have to go to a geothermal hotspot to burn coal. You just got to take the coal there and you can set up a power plant. So I am friendly to Wyoming coal. Um, that with that, I'm also friendly to Wyoming uranium and nuclear
Sure.
power. There are all sorts of um, different fuel sources than the traditional ones. Um, so we ought to be exploring that, and we should be when we look at the future. There's no way that we're going to be using less electricity than we already are. We're going to be using exponentially more electricity. So I would like to see Wyoming continue to be the powerhouse of America.